We're in the book of Esther in chapter 5, Esther chapter 5, and we'll be starting with verse 3 tonight. We're glad that you're all here, and we're thankful that you're here because tomorrow's Thanksgiving. And we were talking earlier before class started, and we were talking about what are some of the things you are thankful for, and how many times do we thank God for things that are so commonplace, like the good roads that we have, or indoor plumbing, or indoor water, and all of these things that we just so often take for granted, and we shouldn't as Christians. We should be thinking about. You know, one of the things that we thank God for down at Jackson occasionally, whoever's leading the prayer, we'll thank them for what's that dog's name? The dog. Bentley. We thank God for Bentley because Bentley is one of the members' service dogs, little bitty Dotson, got a little coat and everything, service dog. And we think because we know that without that dog, he probably would give up. He's in his late 80s and had a lot of really bad health issues, and so that dog keeps him coming and keeps him going. So we're thankful for that. But let's get into our study in chapter 5, and we're starting tonight with verse 3 through 5. Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther, and what is thy request? It shall be given thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. The background, of course, is Mordecai had been disrespectful, so to speak, of a man named Haman, whom the king had promoted to be second in command, as we would think of it, his right-hand man. From there, Haman got all bent out of shape about that, and he's planning on killing all of the Jews. So he went before the king, Ahasuerus. We know him better as Xerxes in secular history. But he went before the king and petitioned that a day would be brought that all of the Jews would be killed. And so Mordecai had, in the past, had saved the king's life. And nothing had been done. And we're going to get into that as we go on. But now Mordecai has petitioned Esther, the queen, to save her people. And she's going to have to go before the king. But you can't go before the king unless you have an invitation, or unless you walk into his special room and he extends the golden scepter. And we noticed last week there's more than just extending the scepter. The person who was given that mercy, that grace, and not killed because they entered unannounced, had to touch or receive the grace that was given. So Esther has gone into the king, and he's extended the scepter to her, and he now asks her, What would you do? What do you want, queen? Now, we've studied in the past, it's very definite that he loved Esther deeply. So he had extended this grace to her, this mercy, and he knows she wants something. And he knows that she wouldn't have come in there, considering the law of the Persians, that she would be killed if he didn't accept her coming in unannounced. What's your request? What do you want? He seemed to realize that there's something very important. There's something that is so important that she's willing to risk her life to come in here without an invitation. Why would anybody thus risk their life for some mundane matter? I mean, something that, somebody's got my parking spot. Big deal. Oh, this has got to be bad. Somebody's been hit by a car out there and they're laying in the road. Now that's bad enough. The promise. Queen, I'll give you up to half of my kingdom. Did he really mean that? Probably not. We see in the New Testament somebody who also offered that, don't we? Herod offered that to the dancer, and she pleased him, and he said, I'll give you up to half of the kingdom. Just whatever you want to ask. Well, we know she asked for John the Immerser's head. What a pitiful choice. Half of the kingdom. He probably didn't mean that he would literally give her half of the kingdom, but it's a way of saying, I'll give you a deal of whatever it is that you're wanting. And so we remember what took place in Matthew chapter 6. The difference between these two kings, is there a difference between them? Well, one king made an offer out of selfish lust. That's Herod. The other made his offer out of genuine love. Big difference, isn't it? The difference between these two women should be noticed by us. Salome was impulsive. She was immoral. She was thinking of only what she could get. And then she listened to the advice of her mother and asked for the head of John the Immerser. She could have asked for 100 talents of silver. Herod would have probably given it to her. But she was acting only on impulse. And what does Mama think I should ask for? She's also willing to obey a fallible human being, her mama. Esther did what she did for the good of others, unselfishly, knowing that possibly she's going to lose her life. But she went ahead and did it anyway, not for herself, not for what she could gain out of this, but for what would be good for other people. And she willingly was following God's will, God's directions. Now, we have no indication, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. There is absolutely no indication that God indirectly or directly told her, do this to save these people. We have absolutely no indication of that. As we've stated before, remember, in the book of Esther, the word God or reference to God never appears. So we have no indication, but we do know that she was following the providence of God. The opportunity's been made available, and she has taken occasion of doing that. She's doing what's right in God's sight. Think about us sometimes. You know, I know we've all seen reports and even sometimes news reels where somebody has been assaulted. Today we saw National Guardsmen in D.C. who have brought peace to the city and just caused a lot of the turmoil and conflict and gangs that are operating there to cease. He got shot. Well, what do we do? What would we do if we were walking down the street and we saw somebody just wailing on somebody else, just beating the tar out of them? What would you do? Would we try to help? Would we try to stop it? Would we, at the very minimum, scream, hey, help, help, to get somebody to try and help? Or would we just ignore it? And we're seeing that in our country now more and more all the time. People getting raped on a city street and a crowd gather around and watch. Or somebody being beaten up and they gather around the crowd and cheer them on. Well, Esther wasn't like that, was she? And we shouldn't be either. We need to be more like Esther and not like Salome, a materialist. An unusual request is made by Esther. She's got an urgent matter at hand. This is important. I got to do something. And what does she do? Well, I'd like you king, my husband, to come to a feast that I'm going to prepare, a banquet. And bring Haman with you. You know, I wonder, I don't think I would have acted like that, do you? I mean, considering everything that's going on, I think I would have been, I want Haman put to death. Just blurt it out. That's it, right now. I want my people saved. I'm a Jew. Notice she didn't reveal at this time who she was. Might not we be tempted to act like that instead of as she did? She's setting up the stage. She's setting it up. And Haman's being set up and he doesn't even know it. Doesn't have any idea. Everything I've read shows that it was a rare thing for anyone to eat with a queen except the king. It was a very rare thing in their society. You know, in Indonesia, when I would go and teach at the college over there every year, I got where I would have a little banquet for the students and the faculty. And it was the custom in their country, and I didn't like the custom, but it was their custom, and it was just a custom, didn't violate any of God's laws. The faculty, we all sat separate from the students. Well, in these ancient countries, that was very much a matter of protocol. You've got to do this, and there were serious penalties if you violated it. And usually nobody ate with the queen except the king. You know, some people have always said, and I guess it's true, I'll bet Sheila believes this, the way to a man's heart's through his stomach. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, isn't there? She sets this banquet up. I don't think I'd have done it that way. But he issues a command. Ahasuerus says, cause Haman to make haste. Tell him to hurry up and get ready. Don't delay. Put everything else aside, in other words. Nothing else is as important to you, Haman, as going to this banquet. There's nothing you can do that's as important. Ahasuerus seems to understand something is very, very, very important that's on the queen's mind. Why would she ask? You know, if I was Ahasuerus, I might be wondering, I wonder why she's asked for Haman to come to this, and I know something's really important that she wants to ask. Roper put forth 4 reasons why Esther may have wanted Haman at this banquet as set forth by 4 Jewish rabbis. They said she was setting a trap for Haman. Rabbi Eleazar said. Rabbi Jose said she wanted him to be at hand when she accused him. Rabbi Meir said she did not want to give him an opportunity to form a conspiracy and rebel. You know, if she spilled the beans, then he might go out and raise an army real quick. He was very rich, very popular apparently. And then Rabbi Gamaliel. Now, notice the other 3 were rabbis, and this one is rabbin. Do you know why? There were only 3 known rabbins among the Jews. It was a teacher of teachers. He is the absolute height of knowledge. He's the greatest teacher. Gamaliel happened to be the very first one. It's also interesting when you study through the New Testament that you find that Jesus was called Rabbin by one of the ladies who came to the cemetery to see him. This rabbin, Gamaliel, said she wanted to prevent Ahasuerus, an erratic king, from having the time to change his mind. Maybe it's all 4 of them. All of these seem to be true to some extent, but we don't really know what was on her mind. But we know, because we've read the rest of the story, that a trap is being set for Haman. It's going to be a deadly trap. Look at verses 6 through 8. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. He repeats it again. Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king has said. Something important on her mind? Notice that it's called a banquet of wine. That's the first day. It's called a banquet of wine. At first thought, I kind of thought maybe this is kind of like a happy hour or something. After a hard day of work, and the secular world we live in says, oh, let's go down to the bar and have a happy hour drink and blah, blah, blah. But it seemed to be two parts to these banquets. The more I read and studied from historians and those who wrote about this kind of thing in that time, it was a time when food was prepared, and there was a lounging after the eating of the food, and then the wine would be brought out, and they would drink that. Kind of like today when we have a good meal, and afterwards, what do we want? A good cup of coffee, right? Corresponds to coffee then after a meal. And again, the king asks, and he makes a promise. What's your petition? What do you want? Again, notice he knows there's something very important. There's something she wants that is very important. I'll give you half the kingdom. He repeats the same promise that he made before. And Esther's petition, if I were the king, if you were the king, wouldn't you have been surprised at what she asked? Oh, come tomorrow to another banquet that I'm going to fix. She requested they come tomorrow, and tomorrow she says, I will do what the king asked. What did he ask? What's your petition? What do you want? Look at verses 9 and 10. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh, his wife. Uh-oh. Haman's all excited. Oh, I must be really somebody special. The queen's asked for me to come and eat with her. And the king, he's all happy. He's all glad. Can't you just see him strutting out of there and thinking, oh man, look at me. Look how good I am. The king made me the second in command, and now the queen's asked for me to come and be a part of a special dinner? Just her and the king? You know, Haman had a lot to be happy about when you stop and think about it. He's the only guest to be asked to come to the king and queen's table. Had been honored by being made second in command. He's been honored by being asked to come to another banquet just like this one. His heart should have been full of joy, and it was. But it was full of vain pride. His joy was based on pride. Oh, look at me. Look how wonderful I must be. Watch how quickly his vain heart changed. Look at the text. Look how quickly his heart changed from being happy to furious, angry. Note that change. But when Haman saw Mordecai at the king's gate, now watch. What did Mordecai not do? he did not stand up to honor Haman. Somebody that's high in command, should they not be honored because of the position that they hold? The President of the United States, we may not agree with him, or we may agree, but the position he holds, we're supposed to honor. God commands it. Romans 13. Oh, and there's something else he didn't do. Did you notice it? Nor moved for him. Apparently, Mordecai is in the very pathway of Haman, and he won't stand up and he won't move out of his way to let him pass by. He makes he makes Haman go around him. And Haman, he's angry. It's not a major disaster that changed Haman's outlook. Just one man. Just one man not soothing, stroking his pride. The lack of actions. Just one man. Mordecai wouldn't move for him, wouldn't stand up for him, wouldn't give him honor, and we've studied that before. Why? Because it had something to do with a false god, that if you bowed to Haman, you're showing worship to that false god, and a Jew couldn't do that. He was full, notice this, he's full of indignation against Mordecai. The original word here is a word that talks about just heat, anger. You know how when you get angry, and all of us do from time to time, let's admit it, let's be honest about it, and that feeling in the back of your neck gets all red and angry, and your face it turns reddish, and you just, you're ready to spit nails. Anger. But notice another word in that definition that we're given about this original word. Poison. It's a poison from the fever. It's a poison that will kill if given the opportunity. Heat, fever, Brown, Driver, and Brown. They also mention this venom, poison. He's like a snake that if he had the opportunity, that old cottonmouth is going to bite you and he's going to inject you with venom and get rid of you. That's what he's planning anyway, isn't it? His joy turned instantly into a poisonous rage. But notice something. He seemed to understand and realize, I'm in public, and if I do something here, everybody's going to see it, and I can't just strike out at Mordecai. I can't just hurt him. I'd like to tell my guards, just kill him. Be done with it. But I better not do it. We're in public, and everybody will see it. So he goes home. And he sends for his friends. And he calls for Zeresh, his wife. What we're going to see is he called for his wife and his friends in order to boast to them about how great he thought he was. How shallow Haman showed himself to be. How shallow people in our own time show themselves to be. Sometimes even Christians do that. By placing material things, by placing material recognition above what's right and what's good, what God would have us to do. You see, great men don't need to feel the need to brag about themselves. They let others do their bragging for them. We need to be people who have humility. God tells us that. We need to recognize that the only person that we want to hear commend us is God. The only one we want to hear tell us we've done a good job is God. That's the only one that matters. He that is greatest among you, what did Jesus say to his apostles as they had been arguing about who was going to be greatest in the kingdom? Remember, they still had the false idea that the kingdom was going to be a physical kingdom and Jesus was going to be the king over that physical kingdom, and that meant that they, as his closest friends, were going to get the top spots. They'd been arguing about who was going to be greatest. So Jesus told, he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And do you remember that they didn't learn that lesson? They didn't even learn it the very night before the night in which he was betrayed and the day before he died. And he had to take and show them and teach them the lesson, not just with words, which should have been enough, but by taking the towel after the supper and washing their feet. And he even indicated to them they didn't understand what was being done at that moment, but they would. Jesus said, the greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased. And he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. As you and I walk among men, we need to understand we're not better than anybody else. And the only one we really want to have commend us is God. Well done. Don't you want to hear those words? Well done, thou good and perfect servant. Is that what you want to hear? You can't hear it, because we can't be perfect. I'm thankful he said, well done, thou good and faithful servant. I can be faithful, even with all the sin that I've committed in my life and sin that I will commit in the future if I live long enough. A lot of folks like to think that once you're a Christian, you don't ever sin anymore. That isn't true. That's another one of Satan's lies. Look at verse 11 through 13. Excuse me. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children and all the things wherein the king had promoted him and how he had advanced him above the princes and the servants of the king. And Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And tomorrow I'm invited to come to another feast. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Look at Haman as he brags to his friends. And he told them truthfully many things. Oh, the glory of my riches. And wasn't he very rich? Didn't he offer to pay for the extermination of the Jews? Didn't he offer that money to Ahasuerus? Yeah. And look at the multitude of his children. We know in chapter 9 and verse 10 that he had 10 sons. 10 sons? The number 10 is usually used in the Bible as a perfect number. It means a full number. We don't know if he actually literally had 10 sons or not. I'm going to take it that he had 10 sons. But it could have been more with the number 10 in there. But I'm going to take it that he had literally 10 sons. In those times, remember, they didn't want girls. They didn't want little girl babies. They wanted boy babies. Why? To be warriors, to be workers who could do far more work than a woman can. I'm sorry, ladies, if you have the idea that you're just as strong as men, that's not true. And I think everybody here knows that. Herodotus said, next to prowess in arms, it was regarded as the greatest proof of manly excellence in Persia to be the father of many sons. Now you might wonder, who was Herodotus? He was a Greek historian of that time who has given us a lot of information about events surrounding Persia and other historical events of that time. He's given us a lot of information. But notice what he said. The greatest thing you could have is a bunch of boys. Notice nothing said about the girls. What a shame. Got to have the girls to have boys, don't we? And then he said, all wherein the king had promoted him. Why, the king, he's made me second in command to him. He's made me above all the princes in the land. There's nobody greater than me except the king. He's advanced me above all the princes, all the servants. And then the queen, she let me come to a banquet with her and the king, and nobody else was invited. Oh, aren't I wonderful? Aren't I great? Look at all, and yet he's not happy. Tomorrow I'm invited to another feast with just her and the king. Yet, all of these accomplishments, and think about it, if he had the right attitude about things and accepted all of these things as good things and not been evil in his heart and planning the destruction of the Jews as he was, and yet all of these blessings were overshadowed. By earthly standards, he had it all. He had it all. The materialist today would have said, oh yeah, man, he was a great man. If I may so say, he was a bum. He was wretched. He was evil personified. All of this avails me nothing. So long as I see Mordecai, that Jew, sitting by the king's gate and refusing to honor me. All he had to do to forget all of his blessings was remember Mordecai. What was Haman saying? As long as Mordecai lives, I am a failure. That's what he was saying. As long as Mordecai lives, all of these blessings mean absolutely nothing. I haven't achieved anything. What a little man Haman was. As Christians, we need to make sure that we do not put values in the wrong place. Our values, materially, morally, we don't want to be like Haman. We need to be far above him in our goals. Our goals should be there. Oh, not the ceiling, in heaven. That's where our goals should be. If I can just be the lowliest one, the last one allowed to enter heaven, what a great reward that is. What a great acknowledgement that is by God. If we lost everything in this world, if tomorrow, like what happened back in the 30s in the United States, and the stock market crashes and everything you have is gone, except your faith and your trust in God, we've lost nothing of significance. The only time we'd feel like we lost something of significance is if we're materially minded. If our top goals are physical things. Would we hurt? Yeah. Would we have to scramble to find food? Yeah. But far better that, holding our faith and our trust in God, than having all the riches in the world. Haman didn't understand that. Most people don't. No matter what you and I might lose materially, we've been blessed far more than we deserve. God's been so good to us. And with the blessings that we have, do we realize just how good God has been to us with these blessings? And are we thus using them as we ought to? Remember that rich farmer? That rich farmer had it all. Why, his crops produced and his animals produced so much that he couldn't even get it into the barns that he had. What am I going to do? Oh, I'll build bigger barns. And I'll tell myself, eat, drink, and be merry. Oh, you got it all. He had nothing. And if our mindset is like his, like Haman's, we have nothing either. Look at verse 14. Then said Zeresh his wife, and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king, that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. Overnight, had this gallows made. 50 cubits high, 75 feet high. Now we're going to learn some things about a gallows in just a minute. It wasn't like what we think of as a gallows. You know, we think of what we saw out west, you know, portrayed as, you know, they built this stand and they hung a rope over a beam and put a knot into it, a hangman's noose, and put it around a guy's neck, and they dropped the floor out, and there he is hanging. And it's not a gallows in their time. Consider the comparison here between Jesus and Mordecai. Haman's friends urged him to kill Mordecai because they couldn't get him to compromise. Remember all those folks that we noticed were trying to get Mordecai to bow to Haman? Why won't you do it? And then they told and were tattletales to Haman and said, oh, Mordecai, he won't bow to you. The Jews murdered Jesus because he wouldn't compromise with them either. They wanted him to go along with the things that they taught. And when he didn't do it, they murdered him. Look at the word gallows for a second. It's not a Persian concept. Remember that when our Bibles were translated, many, many, many years after this time, this was the only word they could figure out to put in there to get the idea of killing someone using a tree. You see, the original word here is atis, and it simply means tree. That's all it means. Wasn't the psalmist, didn't he say that, predict that Jesus would die on a tree? Well, what kind of tree was it? Oh, it was a tree that had been turned into lumber and a cross had been made out of it, but it's still a tree. It's the product of a tree. A historian named Jobes wrote, both from the written witness of Herodotus and from excavated stone reliefs, we know that the Persians built gallows that were wooden stakes on which they impaled, not asphyxiated, their victims. You see, a Roman cross causes a person to drown in their own body liquids. That's what really actually kills them. It takes time for that to happen, but it asphyxiates them. The Persians would take a tree and they would take and cut a point on it, and they would take the person and hold his legs and pull him down until he was impaled. Usually the tree would come out his neck. They were good at what they did. And he didn't die quickly. You'd think, with something like that going through your body, it'd just tear up the internal organs and you'd go ahead and die. You'd bleed to death real quick. No, it didn't. It took a while. They were good at what they did. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. His friend said, build it 50 cubits high. 50 cubits, okay. That'd be about 75 feet, because a cubit in their time was about 18 inches. And this would have been high enough that people all around the area would be able to see that, hey, look up there. Look at that. Oh, that's that guy who wouldn't bow to Haman. And Haman was happy about this. Now, notice what his friends and family told him to do. You go tomorrow and you ask the king, before you go to that banquet, you ask the king to have Mordecai killed on this gallows. And then you go to the banquet. Can you not picture Haman? Yeah, that's it. Then I can be happy when I go to the queen's banquet. Can't you just picture it? With all that we've seen about him so far, this makes me happy. Look at the ups and downs of Haman just for a second. He's happy he got the decree signed to kill all the Jews. But then he's sad because Mordecai won't bow to him. Then he's happy because he's invited to the queen's feast. And then he's sad because Mordecai refused to bow to him again, up and down. And now he's happy again because the gallows are being built and I'm going to have his head. I'll have his life. And little did he realize the great danger that he was in. Again, why? Because all he could think about was himself. All he could think about was his own honor, his own pride, and where he was, instead of looking out for the welfare of all mankind, the kingdom. All because of stubborn pride. Proverbs 11:2 tells us, when pride cometh, then cometh shame, but with the lowly is wisdom. Wisdom, the correct use of knowledge. Wisdom would have caused Haman to act much differently than he did. He would have cared about other people. He would have tried to do what's best for everyone, not just himself. Proverbs 29:23, a man's pride shall bring him low, but honor shall uphold the humble in spirit. How does God look at those who humble themselves before Him? He looks at us with honor. He bestows honor upon us if we will humble ourselves as we're supposed to. But pride, in God's eyes, that brings a man low. Proverbs 16:18, pride goeth before destruction. Haman. Are you listening, Haman? And a haughty spirit before a fall. You see Haman in this last proverb that we looked at? Oh, pride, look at me. Look how wonderful I am. Destruction's coming, Haman. Oh, Haman, Don't you realize a haughty spirit, you thinking you're so much better than everybody else, you thinking the world revolves around you? How many people do we see in our world today acting the same way? God says a fall's coming. You've lifted yourself up. You pretend you're somebody, but you're about to find out. And folks, the judgment day is coming. It's coming. If we will humble ourselves in the face of our God, He will honor us on that great day. But if we don't, we're scheduled for the greatest fall that could ever happen, into an eternal hell with Satan. We'll come back next week and continue in chapter 6.